Hey guys, it's Schwa again, and we're back for the next installment of my Dungeon Boss Deep Dive series. And in this video, we're going to be covering Tazavesh Solia's Gambit. If you haven't watched my other previous video, I highly recommend going back and watching it. And I'll put a link up here somewhere. But you should go back and watch it if you haven't seen it. Final reminder, I do not go over trash mechanics in the dungeon. However, if that's something you all would like me to do in the future, let me know in the comment section. But without further ado, let's dive right in. All right, guys, so first boss in Solia's Gambit is Hillbrand. So the first ability that's going to happen, and it's already actually happened. Oh, it's happening right now. So we have Purifying Burst that's going out. So Purifying Burst, you can see on my HUD right there, I'm being targeted by it. It's a weak aura that I'm showing, but I'm being targeted by it. It's a little bit of damage. It randomly targets 3 players. A little bit of damage. It's like... my barrier like sucks it all up, so it's like not even that much, but just make sure if you're low health that you play your health if you're targeted by it. The second ability that comes out is called Purged by Fire. So this is right here. Sorry, and this is a mess right now because the 12 that I did, the tank pulled like a absolute like monster and pulled like 2 or 3 of these titans onto the first boss. So it's a little clustery in this VOD, but we'll get through it. Anyways, so this one's called Purged by Fire, and a giant beam will come out and on my location, and then it will follow me for 6 seconds. So you can use a movement ability to get out of this. I use Blink perchance. The biggest thing is that you can see me do it here in just a second. I just want to point out something. So I blink there, but the biggest thing is there are important areas of this room that you don't want to cover with these pools because they last for 2 minutes, and you don't want to be taking damage while you're trying to run over certain spots. Those 4 circles in the middle of the room with the runes on them, they spawn orbs that are different colors that you want to actually run over and pick up, so you don't want to put the pools over that. And then vice versa, if you can see right here, in each corner of the room, they have these little devices. That's where you put the orbs that we'll talk about in a little bit. So you also don't want to mussy those up with the pool from the beam, anyways, or as well. Also, this console, you don't want to mess with the console. There's a lot of areas that you don't want to mess up. However, so the next ability that happens is this tank frontal. You'll see. Basically, just don't stand in it. It's meant for the tank. If you get hit by it, it's gonna hurt. But the other ability in phase 1 is the ads right here. So the ads are going to spawn. Boom. They cast 2 abilities. One is a random damage spell that will randomly target a player and deal a little bit of damage. You want to kick those, especially in high keys. They'll like half health you. But the biggest thing is they channel this empowered defense, and it puts a defensive buff on the boss. And then on top of that, if he goes into his second phase and they're still alive, they'll go and channel them on the little consoles that you need to bring the circle or the orbs to, that I'll explain in a second. So just make sure prio ads die. However, we're about to go into the second phase here in like 10 seconds. So I'll go ahead and run this out. So this is another one of the beams right there you see. And this is super clustery. Sorry, guys. Anyways, but boss is phasing now. So boss is now in his second phase called Sanitizing Cycle. And you see there's these 4 colored orbs that spawn in the middle of the room. You have purple, you have blue, you have yellow, and you have red. How you deal with these is someone will go and operate the console, and it's actually me in the video, so I'll actually show you how that works. I wait for this, and I grab the red orb, and then I blink up to the console when I notice that nobody's doing it. And then you get this cog icon. You just right-click on the console. And you can see right here in just a second, I'll pause it. All 4 colors show up in the designation of the area of the room that those orbs need to go. So as you're looking at the console, purple would go in the top right console, yellow would go in the top left console, blue would go in the bottom right console, and red would go in the bottom left console. And that's the easiest, or the only way that you can get out of phase 2 is by getting these orbs in the correct places. It's fairly easy as long as everybody's paying attention to it. And normally this is the tank's job or the healer's job. Mostly because if you have ads still up, you kind of don't want a DPS sitting here doing this while they could be DPSing the ads. But either way, I saw nobody doing it, so I just did it. So if you see nobody doing it, just do it. So once everybody goes and gets their orbs, that'll clear up phase 2. And boom, we go into phase 1. Phase 1 again is just rinse repeat. If it lasts long enough that you get another phase 2, you'll get another phase 2, and you have to do it again. But Hillbrand is as simple as that. Easiest boss in the next 3, or out of the 3 in here, by the way. So buckle up and get ready for the doozy that are the next 2 bosses. So I'm gonna go ahead and fast forward here, get through Hillbrand, and Hillbrand's dead. So you take this portal, you go through some more trash, and then second boss is our Captain's a Dragon. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's time Captain Hooktail. Everybody does the Captain's a Dragon thing. But anyways, this is arguably the most mechanically heavy fight, especially with pugs. The group movement required is really difficult for pugs to kind of like get a handle of, especially in lower keys. But I'll go ahead and start it, and then we can take a look at how it goes. So if you look right here, this is normally the left spot for everybody, and everybody stacks as far right as they can, including the tank. However, the tank's positioning will change shortly, as when we get the ads, there are ads that spawn on the opposite side of the beach from you, and the tank's job, well, 90% of the tank's job is to turn this boss around, turn that sucker around, and point a frontal towards those ads. It's the easiest way to kill them. It one-shots them. However, if your tank happens to miss some ads, or if you're having issues, or you notice that they're just about to be at the edge of the frontal, and if you don't do anything, they're going to get out of the frontal, use some of your utility to try to help the tank out. This boss can be kind of difficult for tanks, especially for newer or lesser experienced tanks. So everybody help everybody. So as far as the tank is concerned. For the DPS, arguably our hardest job is the cannon barrage. So you're going to see my weak aura say feet here, feet. And then all of a sudden we're going to have orange circles underneath our feet, and we move as a group. Notice that we're all moving as a group. That way we get to claim as much ground as possible with leaving as little fire as possible. The other ability that happens is that you see this chain that's being connected to one of the players. That's called Anchor Shot. That just pulls you towards the water. Just make sure that you watch out for that during the cannon barrage, that it doesn't land you in fire. And then the last thing that the boss does is something called Time Bomb. It's a healer dispel mechanic, but just make sure that if you're seeing high stacks on you, play your health. If you need a health pot or health stone or use some kind of defensive, just make sure you use it to stay alive. The healer's jobs, especially in high keys, can be really difficult on this one because they're trying to, it actually gives you a buff the longer that it's up, but it ticks for more damage the longer it's up. So they're trying to like juggle that. Aside from that, that's all the abilities that this boss does. The hardest part is just like actually doing the mechanic or doing the group movement more than anything else, and making sure that the ads don't pile up on you. The best way to do that is this boss arena is shaped like an L. So like you notice that we're here on this section of the wall right here, and that wall goes like this and then goes like this. So the best way that I've seen it is that everybody goes down to this wall until you get to the corner, and then plays this portion of the wall. Or the other way I've seen it is they've given themselves so much free room that they can play this portion of the wall, and then they do a loop-de-loo and do a U-turn for the rest of the way, and they just happen to have enough space. I personally like playing the L because it gives the tank more of an opportunity, because those ads always spawn in a very specific place, and it gives the tank a better opportunity to actually hit the ads if you run the L pattern that I was talking about. So that's it though. The boss is, like I said, the boss's explanation is very easy. The execution of the boss is difficult for a lot of people. As you can see, some people didn't do the L shape like I was talking about. So we ended up having to do the U-turn like I was talking about. Ends up getting kind of cluttered there at the end, but pretty clean either way. And Time Captain Hooktail is done for. And after Time Captain Hooktail comes Solia, the final boss, the namesake of the dungeon. Man, this boss is a doozy, especially for pugs. Lots of abilities, lots of interactions with stuff. It's kind of like a 3-phase encounter. So I'll go through the first phase right now, but by 3 phases, I mean the second phase is kind of broken up into 2 parts. So we'll get into that though. So usually the tank will pull Solia into this corner by the cart. As you can see, the tank's taking them right now, and everybody just kind of gets in there. As a ranged, I've never gone in there personally. And the assassins, this is why they play inside this cart, by the way, because the boss summons these assassins. And for some reason, I don't know what it is, the assassins will spawn on either the tank or a large portion of the group. And when you put them in this area by the cart, they always spawn right next to each other. If you just take the boss in the middle of the room, they spawn everywhere, and it takes them forever to get grouped. And realistically, you want to do so much. You want to do a bunch of like funnel right here, because we popped all of our cooldowns right here, and these ads normally have an ability where they jump out of from the cart and they start casting a spell that's a group wide bleed if it goes off, which is a prio kick, by the way. But usually the first wave of assassins get pretty deleted because everybody's using cooldowns. But the next mechanic, anyways, before I go to the next mechanic, just make sure that if the assassins jump out, because you weren't able to see it here, that you make sure that you reserve a kick for them. It's really important. Anyways, but the next ability is called Collapsing Star. Now, the Collapsing Star is over here, this kind of like whitish circle here, and then it turns into a bubble. Boom, right there, with some stars in it. This is normally a healer mechanic. And it's normally a healer, not in the way that I say like, oh, everything's a healer mechanic because they're just healers. This is a healer mechanic because the amount of damage that goes out group-wide every time they do this mechanic requires them to juggle between triaging and soaking. So what happens is you soak and you get a debuff. The entire group gets a debuff for 3 seconds. If you don't wait for the 3 seconds and just hit it again, you'll then end up getting 2 stacks, and that's really hard to heal. I've seen 3 people jump into this thing and immediately wipe the group. So let the healer do it, unless you have a Mistweaver, a Holy Paladin, or an Evoker. And I throw the Evoker in the mix because, man, they have a hard knock life when it comes to heal or doing anything at far range. So if you have one of those 3 melee healers in the group, it's now your ranged DPS's job to do it. So how you do it is very simple. You can watch the shaman do it right here. Shaman goes ahead, jumps out, gets into the soak, triages, waits for the debuff to fall off. See the debuff right here? And it's all in all of us. It's in 2, 1, it's off. And he's already running for the next one. Boop, gets it off, does triage. So there's 4 stacks of the stars, or 4 charges, whatever you want to say. You only have to soak 3 of them, because the one remaining charge will go off by itself if just not touched. So that is Collapsing Star. It's very important that you make sure that if you have one of those healers, they have a very hard time trying to do that mechanic while also keeping their group alive. However, there will be a portion in this fight later on in phase 2 where the amount of time that you have to soak the Collapsing Star is important, for reasons I'll explain when I get to it. But you do have 30 seconds to finish the soaks. So don't be like, crazy about getting to it immediately. You have time. So you basically just rinse and repeat these mechanics until Solia goes into phase 2. And you'll know she's going to phase 2 because she'll teleport to the middle of the room and she'll start casting something called Power Overwhelming. She phases at 40%, by the way. And the biggest thing you want to do is you kind of want to avoid getting another Collapsing Star. Oh, you get to actually see the assassins jump out here. So we'll watch that. So assassin casts Shuriken Blitz. And then I'm going to get, I about to say I kicked the other one. Or I tried to kick the other one. The biggest thing is you want to try to avoid getting this other collapsing star, because it's just kind of the timing for mechanics is really not very comfy. So we get Solia down to 40%. We end up getting the collapsing star, like I said, you want to try to avoid, but we get Solia to 40%, and she's going to teleport to the middle of the room. Boom. Now, this is phase 2. This is she's going to start casting this thing called Power Overwhelming. You notice these 5 stars in the middle of the room? Players are going to have these red lines that attach to them. You'll see it in just a second. Boss also goes immune, so there's no reason to do any damage. Boom. So you'll have these red lines between you, and you want to run those red lines through the stars. Simple as that. If you get all 5 stars, you remove the immunity buff from Solia. Now, it is important to say that after the stars, or after the star goes through you, or the hyperlight jolt that she's casting goes through you, you do take a moderate amount of damage. So if you're a low, just play your health. Make sure that you like use a defensive or whatever else. Don't just like pray that your healer's going to get you up. So after we clear this, boom, stars cleared. Generally speaking, the majority of groups will tank the boss over in this corner over here. And this is important for one reason. If you notice my positioning, I'm pretty far deep into this little cubby, and all of the melee, the shaman's kind of in a weird position, but all of the melee are facing the room, because what's going to happen next is the next ability in this phase. She's going to cast something called energy fragmentation, where all the stars explode and they shoot energy fragments toward the group. So like I said, if you're positioned like I am, you can see where all the stars are coming and easily dodge them. However, if you don't come over here into this cubby, you tend to have a really hard time if you were, say, like in the middle of the room, just like planted and not doing anything. The next ability that she's going to cast here is this Hyperlight Nova, and there are always circles around all the stars and always around Solia. So just make sure that you're not in it. It is almost certainly a one-shot if you're in the high. Certainly a one-shot if you're a high key, unsure about lower keys. But you notice that this is the portion I was going to talk about real quick, is the next phase. We're going to get another energy fragmentation, and then we're going to phase again to where we have to do the stars. So this is just that rinse repeat that I was talking about. And what's going to happen here, we do the stars clear. This is the one I was talking about where it's important to remember that you have 30 seconds to finish the soaks. So during this phase, we're going to get energy fragmentation at the same time we get collapsing star. And this happens every time you get a second portion of the second phase too. So you see all the way over there is the collapsing star. And we end up moving a little bit for the shaman. Now the shaman is being a absolute G and doing this during the energy fragmentation. Like I said, we still have 13 seconds before it explodes, and he's already done 2 stacks. So he had tons of time. I've seen groups do it before where you wait for the energy fragmentation to go off and then you pop the collapsing star, but it's very close if you do that. So just be careful. And that's it. If you rinse and repeat both parts of phase 2, you're done. You've done it. We can just watch the rest of this and see Solia go down. And congrats. So that's it. You now have the tools you need to crush these bosses the next time you step into Gambit. If you have any questions or thought I left something out or just want to say hi, drop a comment below. And if you want to ask me any questions or see the strats that I use personally live, head on over to my Twitch page. It's twitch.tv/theswaggames, and shoot me a follow. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel and all that YouTube stuff. It really does help the algorithm. But until next time, remember, just repeat so you don't deplete. See ya.